Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. President Biden spends his first day in the UK meeting with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We look at what came of their talk. Dr. Fauci responds to his critics, saying attacking him is attacking science and the truth. A bipartisan group of 10 senators has come together on infrastructure package, much smaller than the White House's $4 trillion proposal. 3 people shot and killed at a Florida supermarket. Investigators say a man took his own life after killing the other 2. Florida is banning critical race theory from its schools. Others across the nation are trying to do the same. NTD speaks with a former Trump official who's helping Americans get the ideology out of their communities. President Biden wrapped up his first day in the UK and is preparing for the G7 summit on Friday. NTD's Christina Kim tells us more about his meeting with the British Prime Minister.
President Biden met with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Thursday, and the two nations affirmed their special relationship. They signed a revamped version of the Atlantic Charter, which was first signed in 1941 by then-President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill.
With a revitalized Atlantic Charter, updated to reaffirm that promise while speaking directly to the key challenges of this century: cybersecurity, emerging technologies, global health, and climate change.
It's of massive, massive strategic importance for the prosperity, the security of the world, for all the things we believe in together: democracy, human rights, the rule of law.
As a part of the charter agreement, travel restrictions between the U.S. and UK will be lifting, but not quite yet. They will create a task force to explore different options on how to reopen. Biden also announced the U.S. will be purchasing 500 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine to donate to nearly 100 low and lower middle income countries.
With no strings attached. Let me say it again. With no strings attached.
200 million doses are set to be delivered this year, and the rest are planned for the first half of 2022. After the G7 summit, Biden will meet with NATO leaders and then Russia's president to conclude his trip. Christina Kim, NTD News.
After months of little to no progress on infrastructure negotiations, a bipartisan group of 10 senators has come together on an infrastructure package. It's much smaller than Biden's $4 trillion proposal, just under $1 trillion, and the senators agreed on how to pay for it. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more from the Capitol.
A bipartisan group of senators is now working on infrastructure negotiations after President Biden cut off talks with the lead Republican negotiator earlier this week. This new bipartisan group is made up of 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats. Republicans say they've come to a tentative deal on this overall price tag, just under $1 trillion, and how to pay for it. They still have some steps to take. They need to get the Senate leadership on board and check with the White House to see if there is a broader support for this new proposal. Their proposal would cost $762 billion to be paid for over 8 years. The group's maximum spending is about $1.25 trillion, similar to the Republicans' earlier proposal. It's not much different than Senator Capito's proposal that was struck down by Biden. But Senator Bill Cassidy says this plan is different because they've included a new energy section. This comes as the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee passed a package Thursday morning. It focuses on roads and bridges, public transportation, and the environment.
In fact, we're seeing progress on multiple fronts right now. There's a bipartisan group in the Senate working on an infrastructure proposal. There's a bipartisan group in the House working on an infrastructure proposal. And Senator Sanders is introducing the budget resolution, which is another vehicle.
One option is to break up Biden's infrastructure plan into small bills, passing some of them with bipartisan support, and whatever Republicans won't vote for may be included in a budget reconciliation, a method that can push the bill without the Republicans. Senator Bernie Sanders is already working on that.
In terms of climate, in terms of child care, in terms of health care, in terms of education, you don't have 10 Republican senators who are prepared to do that. And that is why, as chairman of the Budget Committee, we have begun work on a major reconciliation bill.
Now, Senator Sanders is the chairman of the Budget Committee, so he would be the most knowledgeable senator on Capitol Hill to figure out how to force these social welfare programs into a budget reconciliation package. Now, in order to pass this, every single Democrat would need to vote for it, and it would definitely draw strong Republican criticism because they say this is a vast expansion of the federal government. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The Biden administration is considering restoring a 28.5-mile stretch of abandoned railway to be used for passenger train service. If restored, it would allow passengers to ride from New York City to President Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
What looks like a walking trail actually used to be a train route called the Lackawanna Cutoff. It was built over 100 years ago between 1909 and 1911. The railroad included a route from New York to Scranton, Biden's hometown in northeastern Pennsylvania. President of the North Jersey Rail Commuter Association, Chuck Walsh, has walked the trail of the old railroad for over 35 years.
It was considered to be an engineering triumph when it was built. It allowed for speeds of 70 or 80 miles an hour in the entire length.
The railroad had continual service until its usage declined during the 1950s and 60s, when people started using cars as their main transportation. The railroad's passenger service ended in 1970, and freight service lasted only a few years after that. The tracks were removed in 1984. Now this 28.5-mile stretch of abandoned railway is considered the missing link between New York and Scranton.
The railroads, unfortunately, almost disappeared. We saved what we could, and we saved a lot of what was here, thank God, because now it's vibrant and our freight industry is booming. But we need to bring back the passenger train.
All aboard! Rail Authority head Malsky said a lot of work has already been done to prepare for the service, including New Jersey Transit laying rails and the construction of a new terminal in Scranton. That new terminal will provide bus and other transportation connections at the same location where the proposed new passenger rail terminal would be built. Biden's infrastructure proposal would add 39 new Amtrak passenger routes and connections up to 166 cities by 2035. Bringing Amtrak service to Scranton and other U.S. cities depends on negotiations between the Biden administration and congressional Republicans. The debate is over how much money to spend on infrastructure and how to pay for it. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The Biden administration's top doc is drawing a lot of attention for his latest defense. He says people who criticize him are attacking science and the truth. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
Since Dr. Anthony Fauci's emails were leaked, he has defended himself from critics who question his inconsistent messaging about masks and emails related to the CCP virus lab leak theory. Here's his latest defense.
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. You have to be asleep not to see that. That is what's going on. Science and the truth are being attacked.
This didn't sit well with several Republican officials, like Senator Marsha Blackburn. She's asking why he downplayed the lab leak theory. In May last year, Dr. Fauci told National Geographic, if you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, the scientific evidence is very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated. Still today, he says it likely came from nature. A difference is he now shows more public support for an investigation.
But no, I'm not convinced about that. I think that we should continue to investigate what went on in China until we find out, to the best of our ability, exactly what happened.
A number of researchers published a statement in The Lancet, a reputable medical journal, calling the lab leak theory a conspiracy, even before the WHO declared the outbreak a pandemic. Peter Daszak, one of those researchers, thanked Dr. Fauci for publicly standing up and stating that the scientific evidence supports a natural origin for COVID-19 from bat to human spillover, not a lab release from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci replied, "Many thanks for your kind note." Turns out Daszak's company has received funding from the NIAID, Dr. Fauci's agency, with some of that money going to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So what does this mean? Critics speculate that researchers like Daszak have a financial interest in keeping the potential source of this virus hidden. Senator Blackburn says she wants Fauci to stay out of the U.S.'s investigation into the lab leak theory. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
A group of lawmakers on Capitol Hill aim to have a bipartisan police reform bill written up by the end of the month. They've made some progress, but there is still some work to do. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest on their negotiations.
Senators Tim Scott and Cory Booker are leading a bipartisan group that's working to find middle ground on police reform. They're working to combine elements from both Republican and Democrat police reform policies to create a bill that both parties can come together on. The two bills have some similarities, such as ending chokeholds, enhancing training for officers, and encouraging the use of de-escalation before using force, and prioritizing using body cameras. But there are still some differences that need to be reconciled. A major sticking point is how to hold officers accountable for poor conduct. Democrats want to completely eliminate qualified immunity, which means anyone could sue individual officers for any reason. But Republicans argue this will negatively impact the police force and could even ruin the lives of officers and their families. Instead, Republicans suggest police departments should take the heat with lawsuits instead of individual officers. Republican Senator Tim Scott says holding departments accountable would encourage them to hire good people and train their officers right. The group is aiming to come to an agreement by the end of this month. Scott said Thursday they still have a lot of work left to do to get the bipartisan bill written. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Florida officers are investigating a murder-suicide that took place inside a supermarket. NTD's Miguel Moreno has an update on the shooting.
A man shot and killed 2 people before turning the gun on himself at a public supermarket in Royal Palm Beach, Florida.
3 people aren't coming home, including a child.
Local resident Ron Glassman says he was about 100 feet away from the supermarket's entrance when he saw people evacuating the building.
And about 50 people came out, staff and customers, I presume, yelling, screaming, "Get back, there's a shooter, we heard shots, stay away, get back."
It's unclear if the man, woman, and child were related. A spokeswoman for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office says it's possible that they knew each other. But what led up to the shooting is still being determined. Public says our thoughts are with those who are impacted by this tragedy and that they're cooperating with law enforcement. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Reports say law enforcement has confirmed some tragic news. The child was just a baby under 1 year old and was reportedly related to the woman, but they haven't said whether she was the child's mother. Officials are still trying to identify the shooter. And inflation in the U.S. hits its biggest spike in over a decade, with at least 2 contributing factors. One is all that stimulus money that's been injected into the economy, and the other is that people are eager to get out and spend money on travel and restaurants as life returns to normal. NTD's Kevin Hogan has those details.
When people have money at their disposal and they really want goods, but there's only so many goods to go around, prices go up. That's what is happening in the U.S. right now. The Consumer Price Index, another term for inflation, rose 5% from last May. It's the biggest jump in about 13 years. This huge spike is partly because inflation was at an unusual low last spring during the lockdowns, and people now have some extra spending money due to stimulus checks from Biden's $1.9 trillion relief package. Combine that with pent-up demand for entertainment and travel, and here we are. A senior credit officer at Moody's Investor Service, William Foster, points to a shortage of semiconductors which disrupted the auto supply chain as part of the jacked-up price index.
And also airfares were a big driver, which is, the other common theme here is just pent-up demand for travel and food, beverage services, et cetera, whereas people are going out to restaurants and wanting to go back to a normal life and travel for the summer.
For example, car rentals are about 30% more expensive now than 2 years ago, and what's more, plane tickets are nearly 10% more expensive than just 2 months ago. But Foster suggests the high prices won't last long.
The inflationary pressures we're seeing right now really probably are going to be transitory or temporary. And if that's the case, then that's what the Fed believes, that we are likely on a path for lower inflation over the longer run.
The high inflation is putting an economic squeeze on consumers, and if the inflation keeps up, it could cause the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates, which may dampen the economy. But despite it all, the Federal Reserve reports the economy is growing faster month after month. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Verizon has just launched private 5G for businesses and government departments. That means businesses won't have to compete for speed on public networks anymore. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
Verizon launched its first commercial available private 5G network Thursday in the US. It will offer businesses and government departments high-speed indoor or outdoor connectivity. Private 5G means businesses won't have to compete with public users to get the best coverage, and there are other benefits as well.
With the advent of 5G, there is the possibility to have these private networks with the benefit that the companies can have their own network with a technology that is much more powerful in terms of bandwidth, low latency, but also more secure because it inherits the security that is typical of mobile networks.
Granelli says a lot more 5G networks will be popping up soon.
Especially in China, that you know is very active in 5G technology, but also in Europe. I'm aware that in Germany, for example, big companies such as BMW, Mercedes, they are already thinking to deploy their own 5G private networks in what they call campus networks.
Private 5G networks won't hold you back if you want to carry out intensive tasks like computer vision, augmented reality, and machine learning to increase productivity, with network speeds of up to 5 gigabytes per second. Verizon trialed the private 5G with some customers and is partnering with Microsoft and Amazon. It's also working with Corning, WeWork, Tyndall Air Force Base and Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. That's the one where iconic film Top Gun was filmed. Verizon is reportedly seeing lots of demand for its new service from financial institutions and warehouses controlled by robots and autonomous vehicles. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Coming up, limited rainfall along the west coast has left the region facing a harsh drought. We'll look at what that means for California's agriculture and fire safety. And thieves with a taste for luxury goods steal $100,000 worth of designer handbags from a Louis Vuitton store in California. California's governor and several officials are taking action against a judge's recent gun ruling. The judge wrote that the 32-year ban violates the Second Amendment. Officials are fighting back. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez recently ruled that banning assault weapons goes against the Constitution and that these firearms are commonly allowed in other states. California officials said in a Thursday press conference that public safety is at risk and that California will try to reverse the judge's ruling.
We're also aware of the U.S. versus Heller decision, which has said very clearly that there are some guns that cannot be sold, manufactured, possessed. Machine guns, short-barreled shotguns. We think that assault weapons, as defined by California's law, fall in that category. So we're going to make our best case at the next level.
An assault weapon is defined as a semi-automatic rifle with characteristics such as a fixed magazine and capacity of more than 10 rounds of ammunition. In reference to a previous court ruling, Judge Benitez wrote that the AR-15 type rifle is commonly owned by law-abiding citizens. They're owned for lawful purposes, which includes self-defense. But one speaker claimed that several gun owners don't think an assault rifle is necessary for self-defense.
And this judge seeks to strike down those laws and put our families and our communities at risk.
Today, and so the state has to continue to lead and fight. We'll fight. We'll continue to lead.
The Firearms Policy Coalition released a statement saying, FPC condemns Governor Newsom's outrageous and callous personal attacks on the Honorable Federal District Court Judge Roger T. Benitez. The Miller v. Bonta lawsuit started when a California resident sued California's Attorney General in 2019 over Second Amendment rights. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
California is looking at what may be one of its worst droughts in history. With low water levels and fire season approaching, the state's massive agricultural industry is under pressure as well.
California's water supply is in a precarious situation. Last winter had near historic low levels of rainfall. Now, reservoirs across the West are far below average, including California's Folsom Lake.
The soil now is drier than it's ever been since 1895. This year, it's bone dry.
With lack of water, California's agriculture industry is in danger.
I'm extremely worried about the future, absolutely, because if we have to see if we can survive this year first. We may not survive.
California's farming industry produces roughly 13% of the United States' food. About half the fruits, nuts, and vegetables in the U.S. come from California.
We have some of the finest soils in the world here, and we have a marvelous growing season with felicitous weather. The tricky part of it is the water is the third element of the equation there.
Even worse, fire season is approaching. 2020 was one of the worst years for California wildfires.
When the fires do ignite, you get firestorms. And they just explode. They go up these canyons and into the hills and creates these chimney effects. And then the flames leap from one place to another.
For fire suppression, you need water, and in a drought year in which things are very hot and burning up all around the state, water becomes an issue too.
Governor Gavin Newsom has proposed to double the state's firefighting budget. Water shortages are still to be addressed.
In Southern California, a team of law enforcement officials are aiming to get the homeless off the beach. Here's NTD's Jamie Joseph with more on site.
Since the pandemic, Venice Beach has been crowded with an increased number of homeless encampments, resulting in fires, trash, and crime. The boardwalk became a sanctuary zone under LA Council member Mike Bonin, but residents and business owners are calling on law enforcement to address the issue. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Homeless Outreach Services team came to Venice Beach to address the needs of the homeless, as well as talk to business owners to see what the community needs ahead of the July 4th sweep of all of the encampments off of the beach.
Based on when we collaborate and find out what needs need to be met, we can bring additional resources to address those needs. And it's a quite comprehensive situation. And then outreach continues to satisfy those needs to assist someone to transition out of homelessness.
Diedrich tells NTD some people are already connected with housing, including homeless veterans. The team uses a 5-step protocol to identify, assess, reach out, so that when the cleanup happens on July 4th, they can transition into housing or a shelter. One homeless person said the homeless stay there because no rules are enforced on them.
This is non-stop, 24-hour a day going, this lifestyle, and it gets crazy. Some people, do too much drugs. They're up for days, weeks, and they're just psychotic, running around, screaming at trees and invisible trees and whatever. But they like it. They go, no, I love it out here. Nobody tells me what to do, and I can run around in my underwear.
Say says he knows almost everyone on the beach. Though some individuals are nonviolent, there are attacks, fights, and reports of fire hazards.
And the acts of violence here have been significant. It was heartbreaking to see that the gentleman the other day get punched in the face in broad daylight. That can't happen. We have to have a civil society, and it needs to be to where everybody can enjoy this place.
Despite dangers, Diedrich says it's rewarding to see people accept the help and see that their living conditions improve. According to one recent report, the California homeless population makes up 28% of the nation's homeless and 51% of the nation's unsheltered. Jamie Joseph, NTD News, Los Angeles.
A coordinated group of shoplifters ran into the open Louis Vuitton store at a luxury shopping center in Palo Alto, California. They later got away in 5 different cars with more than $100,000 in designer handbags.
Palo Alto police received a call on Monday from a witness reporting that a large group of suspects had just committed a shoplift from the Louis Vuitton store at Stanford Shopping Center. Officers responded immediately, but the suspects had already fled before their arrival. The investigation revealed that 11 suspects entered the open store at around 5:30 p.m. and grabbed 36 handbags. They quickly exited the store, ran through the mall, and escaped in 5 separate vehicles. The total value of the stolen handbags was more than $100,000. Witnesses could only describe the suspects as black males and females wearing face coverings. A witness was able to photograph one of the suspects as she fled through the mall carrying stolen handbags. Officers are actively investigating this case, trying to determine if it is the same group who hit another luxury store just a few doors down from Louis Vuitton 3 weeks prior. On May 19th, a group of 10 black suspects, 5 males and 5 females, grabbed 43 handbags from Neiman Marcus valued around $150,000, then fled in 3 getaway cars. In both cases, all suspects were reportedly unarmed and didn't cause any injuries. All suspects are still at large. Police are asking anyone with information about either case to come forward by contacting the Palo Alto Police Department. Meanwhile, Stanford Shopping Center has stepped up in the security with more on-site patrols. Louis Vuitton boarded up their store windows and is asking for customer names before they are allowed to enter the store.
The Florida Board of Education just banned critical race theory from the classroom. This comes as part of a large pushback against the ideology. NTD speaks with Russ Vought, the president of the Center for Renewing America and a former Trump OMB director.
Critical race theory, or CRT, is an offshoot of critical theory rooted in Marxism. It critiques history through a racial lens, classifying people as oppressed or oppressor based on the color of their skin. Proponents say it's a step in the right direction to undo systemic racism, and learning history from a different perspective will change people's unconscious biases. But critics say it's divisive and that it hides behind the guise of diversity, equity, inclusion, and even history.
Critical race theory is certainly the legal framework, but it doesn't just come out with a neon light around it and say, here we are.
Concerned parents across the country are becoming aware of CRT, and they're grappling with how to weed it out from their children's schools. But they say recognizing its many forms can be easier said than done. Russ Vaught's organization, Center for Renewing America, has just released a free downloadable toolkit called Combating Critical Race Theory in Your Community. This is to help people better identify what is critical race theory.
My view is always that as people learn more, as they know more, they'll be more courageous and they'll be more prepared.
The group has also released a model legislation for school boards. In the last couple of months, school boards have become the hub for parents and teachers to push back against CRT. Vaught believes this rising tide of parents is happening because, thanks to remote learning, they've been able to see firsthand what's being taught to their kids. And he says the BLM riots allowed people to experience the consequences of this ideology. That's because the destruction was done in the name of combating systemic racism.
I think people came away from that last year saying, what's been percolating on our college campuses is serious business. We saw it in the communities, but now you take it one step further and you realize it's in our schools. I think that's why people and parents are rising up, and we can't even keep track of how many people are rising up to lead with courage in the given moment.
And the movement's picking up pace at the state level, too. So far, over 22 states have introduced legislation to prevent critical race theory from being taught in the classroom or enforced by state agencies. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Coming up, the pandemic situation worsens in China's Guangzhou city. Patients say the city's quarantine centers are like concentration camps, and some residents under strict lockdown are begging for food. And a Chinese Communist Party official was stabbed to death by his colleague. It happened at one of China's top colleges. Find out more on NTD News.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate co-pays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, coming to the Palace Theater, June 26th and 27th. Tickets at shenyun.com/Stamford.
Are China's makeshift hospitals making a return amid the pandemic? Online videos show container rooms being transported into Guangzhou in large numbers. Locals share what it's like to be at a quarantine center. We hear more from NTD's Tiffany Meyer.
An online video from earlier this week appears to show large numbers of container rooms being transported into Guangzhou. That's China's newest epicenter of the CCP virus pandemic.
哇，全部裏邊啊，有窗門有空調啊，係咪整方艙醫院啊？
The video was reportedly taken in Guangzhou's worst-hit district. The netizens shooting the video suspected that they were for the purpose of constructing makeshift hospitals for virus patients. Local media also reported on Tuesday that more than 450 containers are scattered in a field located in the district. But local authorities denied the claim. They said the container rooms are going to be used as dormitories for thousands of health workers. The CCP is known for building many makeshift hospitals during the early stages of the pandemic in Wuhan. 3 hospitals have the ability to quarantine large numbers of people under centralized control. And another video shows the condition of quarantine sites in Guangzhou. Local residents describe these quarantine sites and their management style as being very similar to a prison or a concentration camp. It's less than a month away from the CCP's 100th anniversary on July 1st, and the party is planning mass celebrations. But Chinese officials seem to be troubled by the pandemic situation in Guangzhou. Authorities there are carrying out mass testing and have locked down various areas. The outbreak in Guangzhou is concerning because it involves a highly contagious virus variant first detected in India. As of now, Chinese authorities only officially reported about 100 cases in the city. Residents under lockdown in Guangzhou's worst-hit district are reportedly starving. Strict lockdown measures are believed to be part of the reason. And online videos from Wednesday show CCP officials visiting the worst-hit areas in Guangzhou City. In it, a group of residents were seen shouting for help at the officials downstairs. Residents in places under strict lockdown also report that food prices have been artificially inflated. Guangzhou is China's 3rd largest city and is home to nearly 14 million people.
A high-ranking communist official at a top Chinese college was stabbed to death by a teacher there. Police say it was over employment issues, but the suspect says he's been mistreated. Just a warning, some viewers may find the following footage disturbing due to its graphic nature.
The highest-ranking Chinese Communist Party official at a top Chinese college was stabbed to death by his colleague, according to media reports. The suspect was a math teacher at Fudan University in Shanghai, surnamed Zheng. On Monday, he attacked Wang Yongjun, the Communist Party secretary of the university's School of Mathematics. Chinese police claim that the killing was over employment concerns. A theory circulating online says that Zheng was dismissed from his teaching position for not meeting requirements outlined in a deal he signed with the school. But in an online video, Zheng said the school had been mistreating him for a long time. He also noted he carried out the attack alone. A Chinese netizen reacts to the case, saying, "Fortunately, this man did not kill innocent passers-by." This is likely because news of indiscriminate killings have been common in China in recent months. Just earlier this month, a man in eastern China killed 6 pedestrians on a shopping street with a knife. It was over his family issues. And a month before that, in May, a man in northeastern China drove his car into a crowd of pedestrians crossing a street and killed 5. According to Chinese media, he felt hopeless after his investment failure. The Fudan case is still in progress.
Huawei's tough times continue. Investment bank JP Morgan says it's going to exclude Huawei from some of its stock indexes. This will reduce the money Huawei can raise. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
JP Morgan says it will exclude Huawei dollar bonds from some of its most influential investment indexes. It follows increasing U.S. sanctions on Chinese tech firms. Last week, President Biden banned U.S. entities from buying or selling some Chinese company securities. The 59 Chinese companies allegedly have ties to the Chinese military. JP Morgan told its index users about the exclusion and said that Proven Glory Capital and Proven Honor Capital are explicitly named in Biden's order. Huawei was first blacklisted in 2019 over national security concerns. The ban has hit Huawei hard. They were once the biggest smartphone maker in the world, but now they are ranked 6th. First quarter results for this year show it has just a 4% market share. Huawei has repeatedly denied it is a risk. JP Morgan says it will exclude Huawei from the selected indexes starting July the 30th. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And coming up, a French Open tennis match is interrupted due to COVID restrictions, which triggers a protest among spectators. And watch as a stunning solar eclipse paints the northern hemisphere red. That and more on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
The man who slapped the French president in the face is now in jail. 28-year-old Damien Terrell will have to spend 4 months in prison. The man describes himself as a right-wing patriot. France is banning him from ever holding public office in the country, and he can't own weapons for 5 years. Terrell testified that the slap was impulsive and unplanned and said it was prompted by his outrage at his country's decline. He shouted a centuries-old royalist battle cry when he slapped French President Macron. Police also arrested another man identified as Arthur C. He will face trial next year for illegal possession of weapons. Neither of the two had police records. Macron said in an interview with BFM TV that he doesn't want to make what he calls the stupid and violent act more important than it is, but said nothing justifies violence in a democratic society ever. Cornish people are welcoming world leaders to the G7 summit with Cornish food, a Cornish castle, and even Cornish songs. A local group of sea shanty singers say they're glad to have such an opportunity.
She was a charming rover.
Strolling down the Prince of Wales Pier in Falmouth, local sea shanty group Briar's Boys belt out a rendition of the traditional Cornish song Lamorna to the delight of onlookers.
Her eyes, they shone like diamonds, and the evening it was.
We are
Briar's Boys,
and we sing Cornish traditional and sea shanties.
The 11 men specialise in the traditional seafaring songs. It was the group's first live performance since March 2020. They rewrote traditional sea shanty, A Drop of Nelson's Blood, to a G7 theme.
4 leaders to meet wouldn't do them any harm.
4 leaders to meet wouldn't do them any harm.
Well, having the G7 sited here in Cornwall is a fantastic opportunity. There's so many things that could capitalise on that. The businesses, the maritime industries, the hospitality, but also the entertainment, an opportunity for people to plug into the culture of Cornwall.
Sea shanties are traditional songs sung by miners, mariners and fishermen. They regained popularity during the lockdown.
Certainly people say, yeah, we like these sea shanties. They're not just for old fogies sitting down making nets on a wharf side. And so we've been doing it for a while.
Briar's Boys' performance at next week's virtual International Sea Shanty Festival will be streamed online. Brooks is also looking forward to a return of live performances soon.
We do it because we love it. It's a passion for all of us. We enjoy singing, we enjoy performing and putting smiles on people's faces. And as I say, it's a job for life. There's no escape.
So hoist up the John B. sail, see how the mainsail set.
The fourth set during the semi-finals at the French Open was interrupted by the organizers due to COVID restrictions, a decision some spectators protested. NTD's France correspondent David Vives has the details.
The first night session match at this year's Roland Garros tennis tournament was troubled with an unusual scene. Tennis star Novak Djokovic had the match on his racket at 3-2 on serve in the fourth set. The audience was then ordered to leave in line with Paris's 11 p.m. COVID curfew requirements. Some of the 5,000 fans there would not accept the decision and began shouting, "We have paid, we have paid." The organizers then decided to evacuate the players to force the remaining audience out of the stadium. The players had a 25-minute pause, waiting until people had gone, but Djokovic said he would have preferred to stay.
We had to find the motivation because we lost the energy of the public, and it was a very, very difficult match until the end for both of us.
France's government plans to progressively lift its COVID restrictions. Parliament member Martin Vonner says despite pushback from the people, the French Parliament has no way to bend the government's decision.
We had a curfew at 9 p.m., then it was 10 p.m., then 11 p.m. This was never addressed in Parliament. We're not even sure whether it's effective against the epidemic. We don't know what it's good for.
There's said to be no national curfew by the end of the month. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Israel is bolstering its Navy's presence with the addition of another missile-carrying warship. Here are the details.
Israel received a second of 4 new German-made warships on Wednesday, one of its most advanced corvettes dubbed Oz, or Hebrew for courage. The Sar 6 corvette docked in Haifa port after a ceremonial flotilla which included 2 submarines. The warship and 3 of the same model, one of which arrived last December and another 2 will follow later this year, will bring to 15 the number of missile-carrying vessels deployed by an Israeli Navy. While that number is small, the vessels carry out missions as far away as the Red Sea and the Gulf. Israel also wants to protect offshore natural gas fields close to Lebanon, an old foe. So far, Israel has made no progress in maritime border talks with Lebanon, mediated by the U.S. Israel sees a threat to the gas rigs from Lebanon's Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists.
Good news for Danish football fans as Denmark ditches face masks and is welcoming more fans to Euro 2020 matches.
Just in time for the European Football Championship, Denmark is lifting more pandemic restrictions. In a deal reached among most parties of Parliament, the Nordic country will ditch the use of face masks and allow more football fans to attend matches. Masks will no longer be mandatory from the 14th of June, except for standing passengers on public transport. And from Friday, restaurants and bars are allowed to gradually extend their opening hours. A total of 25,000 fans will be allowed to visit Euro 2020 matches taking place in Copenhagen. That's up from around 16,000. Though the Danish Football Association says the increase will not apply to the first match on Saturday when Denmark meets Finland. The Danish team is also set to meet Belgium and Russia at the Parken Stadium. Euro 2020 was postponed by a year due to the pandemic and will begin on Friday with the opening match in Rome between Italy and Turkey.
Cows aren't known for being dangerous animals, but they posed a threat when more than a dozen of them ran wild on a Bolivian city on Wednesday. At least 4 people were injured, according to local reports, but no deaths have been reported. Mobile phone video caught one cow ramming into a child. A total of 17 cows were successfully captured some hours after they began running through the city, according to Bolivian media. The original source of the running Bolivian cows remains unknown. And people in several countries witnessed a treat early this morning as the northern hemisphere experienced a solar eclipse. Let's take a look.
Several countries got to experience a celestial phenomenon on Thursday as they witnessed a solar eclipse lighting up the skies in the northern hemisphere. Eyewitness footage in Avon-by-the-Sea, New Jersey, and cities in Canada captured a partial solar eclipse, creating a spectacular crescent which floated over the sea and painted the sky red. Solar eclipses occur when the moon moves across the face of the sun and blocks out some or all of the light emanating from it. Other countries experienced a ring of fire, or annular solar eclipse, where the moon moves entirely over the sun but does not block out its light, leaving a thin ring of brilliance.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.